Hello, and welcome to another episode of Boundless Body Radio. I'm your host, Casey Ruff, and today we have another amazing guest to reintroduce to you now. Raymond Nazon is a returning guest on our show. Be sure to check out his first appearance on episode 468 of Boundless Body Radio, titled Priming, Feasting, and Fasting with Carnivore Raymond Nazon. Raymond Nazon has been following a carnivore diet for over 7 years now. Through his meat based protocol and intermittent fasting, he has lost over 80 pounds and eliminated prediabetes, acne, GERD, rosacea, arthritic joints, diminishing eyesight, poor wound healing, constant brain fog, snoring, and insomnia, among others, if you can even comprehend among others. That's crazy. Raymond has coached others on the carnivore diet for years, was a top MeatRx carnivore coach, a company also known as Revero, and has coached on the Steak and Butter Gang platform, where he primarily coaches to this day. He was also featured in Men's Health for his ripped physique and amazing transformation. I met Raymond at KetoCon 2023, which was one of the largest conferences of its kind, which is now called Hack Your Health and is hosted in Florida. His presentation, titled Priming, Feasting, and Fasting, which was done with fellow coach Amy Harvo, who we hosted on 497 of Boundless Body Radio, was absolutely fantastic. You can find Raymond on various social media platforms, including Instagram, Facebook, and YouTube, simply by searching his name, Raymond Nazon. Raymond Nazon, what an absolute honor it is to welcome you back to Boundless Body Radio.
It's awesome to see you again, Casey. Loved it.
So great to see you. Before pushing record on this episode, we already had an amazing back and forth, and you were explaining some things you're passionate about. And my only ask for you, off record and now on record, is if you could try, please, to be a little bit passionate about some of the things you talk about. Try not to make this like super boring and really flat. Like, oh my goodness, dude, I love talking to you. Your messages are amazing. I just love the way you approach the carnivore diet. You make it fun, you make it entertaining, and you're just absolutely so passionate about it. I'm so grateful that you had the time to be on our show today. Can't wait for this one.
Yeah, man, I'm excited to be here. And Casey, I was kind of hoping to see you at Meatstock, but I didn't. So yeah,
Yeah,
I'm hoping
had
to
to.
see you in person again.
I'm sure our paths will cross again. I was going to ask you about that. How was Meatstock this year?
Oh man. That gathering of just meeting other carnivores, and you don't have to actually explain yourself. You just look at each other and you kind of just know and meeting all of these famous people is just, I don't know, felt like family, That's all I can say. And there were tons of people all around trying to talk to us. And, I talked to a lot of celebrities myself. And, it was just so much fun. And I say celebrities on a low key thing. Really, we feel like family. We all seem to relate. We all seem to have, certain hidden struggles that we're all going through. And, and also the achievements that we've had from the carnivore diet. So it was just amazing seeing Kelly Hogan, Linda Salant, of course Bella was there. There's so many, Dr. Baker, Dr. Ken Berry, just so many people.
That's amazing. I've gotten to meet a lot of those people. I have not gotten to meet Linda Salant. How is she in person to hang out with?
She is so beautiful. She is just so pretty. I mean, she is a little older, have 4 kids, and I just can't believe how young she looks.
She
You know what
looks
I mean?
very young. She does look
She looks
incredibly young.
so young. I mean, it just baffled me seeing her in person. I'm like, I had to like kind of double take. I'm like, is this, what was this really her? So, she was right next to Kelly, and of course Kelly's gorgeous also. So she just stands out in the room. You just can't see that vibrancy. It really shows how much carnivore. And both of them, I think they're like Linda's like 15 years now, and I could be wrong. Kelly's like 18, 20 years, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Crazy
Wow.
amounts. Yeah.
It really is amazing. That's so cool. I'm so glad to hear that it's not just some kind of Zoom filter that makes everybody look younger. They actually look younger in person.
Right?
And same with you, man. If you're listening and not watching, Raymond is looking amazing at age 53. I thought you were only 51 to begin with. You look amazing. What a cool journey. And yes, like we go to these conferences, we see the quote unquote celebrities, and yeah, they are celebrities. They're celebrities to us, and we want them to, sign our posters and baseball cards and bobblehead dolls and all the memorabilia we have for them. But it's also really cool. The thing I love about conferences, especially like, the way KetoCon used to be, is you get that side of things, but you also get people that are maybe just starting this journey. They're maybe not there
Yes.
quite yet with their metabolic health. They're learning about this stuff. They're really fired up about it. They travel to something like this. Were there any like amazing stories of people that you met that we would call, like everyday people, but they came here because they wanted to learn a little bit more and left feeling super inspired?
Yeah, there's one that really stuck out in meat stock. Her name was Marianne. So apparently she was so bad off, and she started carnivore, and I'm so glad she was like a anorexic, or is having a lot of issues, but she was so bad off that she had some they had to remove her some of her fingers and all that from all malnourishment. And unfortunately, right after the meat stock, she actually had to get an amputation for her leg. And my heart tug. I'm so glad I got to talk to her too. But I just kept on thinking about her, and I was like thinking, this is yes. Even at that point where it's already bad, you could tell when I was talking to her that she still had hope. She had hope for a quality life, even though if it's not fast enough, carnivore is just not fast enough to prevent certain things. But it's still, she feels the benefits still. And she says she's on there. She had little ribeye earrings, ribeye shirt. She was just kind of portraying how important carnivore was for her. And these are people to me, because I was pretty much knocking on death's door myself. Those are the people that really I relate to the most. I'm not really that interested in those people that are like, oh, I want to lose my last 20 pounds kind of thing. Those are that's great for using carnivore and all that kind of stuff. But to me, you already have that kind of quality of health that you can actually stretch yourself out that much. And that's not my interest. My interest is, hey, how can I talk to people that were like me near death's door and say, hey, you have that hope, you have that possibility that you can have a normal quality worth life. So much so that later on, that maybe you might have such quality that you could look at that last 20 pounds later on. That's what's really about. Because I had a question from a guy that in the audience, and he was like, I want to lose that last 20 pounds. What can I do? And then I looked at him, I was like, you know what? Be grateful. Be grateful that you got to that point where you could look at your last 20 pounds and that's all you needed to lose. That's gratefulness at that point. We should be grateful instead of demanding more and more and kind of moving the goalposts. And I've done that. I've done that as a carnivore. I kept on moving my goalposts. Oh, it wasn't enough. Oh, I wanted more. I wanted a better ripper physique. I wanted all of this. And I realized, what am I chasing? And it got me into a little bit worse mental state just doing that. So why are we fighting so hard for how we look instead of how we feel and that quality of life, what it can get us?
Again, if you could just bring a little bit of passion, I would really appreciate that. That's amazing. What a cool story with this woman. It's interesting. We're learning more about eating disorders and how ketogenic
Yes.
diets can actually help with eating disorders, and that would be very counterintuitive, I think, for a lot of people to learn about. But fueling the brain of somebody who has experienced that with ketones could be very helpful. So we've got a lot to dig into. I can't wait to have this discussion with you. We had you on episode 468 of our show. It's one
Yes.
that stands out to me as one that I very much remember. I love the concepts that we talked about. And between the podcast episode that was audio and the YouTube video that was launched, was easily one of our top 3 podcast episodes that we've ever done of all time. So people want this information, and they really love your concept. And we're going to get into that in a second. You were talking just now about how carnivore kind of took you from death's door. Can you remind us your story of health and all the things, the abbreviated list of things that we already mentioned in the introduction, all the things you had to deal with? Can you tell us your story into bad health and out of bad health?
Yeah, I can give you like examples. There were times I just couldn't wake up, and when I did, the first step that I did, because I had plantar fasciitis, it was just sheer intense pain to the point where sometimes I even fall down, and I just couldn't make it to the bathroom. Eventually, it kind of settles in, and I'm enough to trudge my way to work. But the worst part is because of my diverticulitis, I would have flare-ups. Usually flare-ups like right in the middle of the night. And these flare-ups, I tell you, they're just so intense. It's I actually feel, and only somebody that's been through it knows what I mean on this. But it was so intense. So it wasn't just pain, like intense pain. It felt like somebody took a corkscrew and put it in the wrong end, started twisting and pulling, and it was like a laboring feeling. But the worst part of that, that wasn't the worst part. The worst part of that, feeling my life force actually going away from me. And I only people would know what that feels like. It's like a drain, like a strip, like a part of myself just left my body. And those were the worst. The only thing that I could hope for is that I'd pass out, which I have passed out. That was actually a good instance whenever I had that. um, the worst ones where I couldn't pass out, where I would try to knock myself into the wall, trying to knock myself out. The pain was so great. Now, here's the thing. You're probably wondering, why didn't I just go to a hospital and just get it over with? Thing is I didn't trust the medical community. I didn't trust them. And when I did go and did a checkup and told them about it, they told me that they probably have to remove my colon. And I was like, damn, I'd rather die. But of course, at that time, I didn't know what kind of pain that I could live with. So, day in, day out, I'm thinking there's got to be ways. And I've tried all kinds of ways. I've tried all kinds of herbals. I've tried detox. I tried, you name it. I probably tried it, right? Um, and it wasn't until carnivore that eased that. But even beyond that, I had, where I was sleeping, falling asleep at the wheel. I couldn't sleep at night. Both my nose were so clogged up that I just couldn't breathe right. I was snoring terribly. It was being in this body felt like a prison. Like, and I didn't get a break. It just constant, just something that I had to deal with. Every month I'm sorry, every other month I would get UTI. And that was some severe UTI. And during these other months that I didn't, I had a cold. And these things would run 2 weeks at a time. Eventually it would abate, but it was just impossible to get myself where I just felt like I kept on every year was getting worse and worse. And the intensity was going 10 times more every year. So that's a description of how bad that was. But of course, you saw a lot of, you just stated a lot of other issues I had, the dandruff, those were just, I didn't even care about all those, right? I cared about the actual pain and living through that pain. It's not a life. I actually thought of offing myself, and I have two children. Um, and I was like, I got to do it, and I was very close to doing it. And thank God, I took the chance and said, you know what? Let me try changing my diet.
Wow. I thought I knew your story, dude. I had no idea it was that depth as far as the pain and the mental anguish. That's absolutely incredible. Like I said, I thought I understood all of that. And yeah, so initially you were searching ways that you could back off things. I think you had a diagnosis of we mentioned in the introduction, the prediabetes. Was that the main
Yes.
motivator to find something different?
I know that's weird, right? That was actually the main motivator because the nurse took me, and maybe it was because of that combination. The nurse took me back in their office. They're like, first they told me, they emailed me, we really need to see you right now. It's grave, it's bad. And I went back there and they were telling me that you're going to be a diabetic. You're just right there. A1C of a 6.0, 44-inch waist, triglycerides really high, HDL low. I mean, I had all the classic, and I really thought actually I was diabetic. They were just looking at that one number A1C thing to say that I wasn't. So I probably was. I also had the foot neuropathy. That's why I had the plantar fasciitis and heel spurs. So, all of that was there. So when they told me that, look, you're going to be diabetic, soon you'll be on insulin shot. And that kind of scared me right there. And I was like, and that's where it led me to start looking. I was like, there's got to be a cure for diabetes. And I asked them that. It was like, there's no cure. You're going to end up in insulin. You're going to end up doing the ADA diet, the diabetic diet, because that's what the doctor's going to tell you to do. And I was like, there's got to be something I could do. And then they were like, well, you can manage it with diet and exercise. And I was at that time, I was like, you know what? I haven't tried exercise. I'll try that. And let me tell you, for anybody out there thinking that exercise is going to be the solution, it was not for me.
Thank you.
So it was a diet change. There's no question about that. In my results, this is in my experience. I walked it. It's not something I'm theoretically talking about. So once the diet started changing, everything was slow though. It was slow. It was something that it's so funny when things just started getting better. I didn't realize it. Isn't that crazy, Casey, that you don't realize it?
Hear it all the time. You hear it all the time, don't you?
Yeah, and I hear it from my clients, but I actually witnessed that. The only time I started realizing it is when I had clients of my own telling me about their issues, and I'm like, oh, damn, I forgot about that.
I
And it's
haven't
funny
been sick
as
in
you
a
were
long
talking,
time. I don't have
right,
athlete's foot. I smell better.
right.
Like you name it.
And I forgot to tell you because you mentioned mindset thing, how my mind. I was in big depression. And I was huge anxiety, huge OCD, all of that. And I know it sounds crazy because you're looking at me right now. You're like, "There's no way this guy had all these issues." I get it. So it's hard to even convince people that I was really that sick. I can just tell you how I was. Okay, I had a hard time believing myself that I allowed myself to get that bad because it was all internal. I only lost 80 pounds, so it's not that big of a deal, right? So
Kind of big
I,
deal.
I mean, well, it's funny because somebody was came up and told me about their story about how they don't have to have the seat extender. So you would think just 80 pounds more. I was right there where I had to get a seat extender from the airplane flight. I was so big, and I don't know if it's because of inflammation, that I was so uncomfortable being whoever next to me because I was spilling over. I had a 44-inch waist. So, and it could have been inflammation. I don't know. But all of a sudden, when I went carnivore, it slowly started just shifting, shifting, shifting. And even 7 years later, 7.5 years later, my body is still shifting amazingly. So I'm like, I'm still getting benefits from it. It's crazy.
Oh, yeah, that's amazing. That's so super cool, dude. And you kind of got into carnivore, really kind of a convenience thing, and not liking vegetables, and then learning the fact that you actually don't need them must have been just music to your ears, and to be able to try it and see your own experience and experience all those things is just absolutely amazing. And through your journey, especially with coaching, you have not only helped coach people, but you've also developed protocols. And the one
Yes.
that we mentioned many, many times in the introduction, it gets so much attention. You talk about it all the time. I'm going to make you talk about it again. Is priming, feasting, and fasting. This is such
Yeah.
an awesome concept that people really need to grasp and understand. And it's so funny because you would think that it would be amazing news, like the priming piece, especially like this is the best news. You get to eat as much as you want. And it turns out to
Yes.
be like the most miserable thing for a lot of people in the beginning.
Yes.
But can you tell us a little bit about the history of how you developed this protocol? And then we can get into each one of those stages.
Well, first of all, what set me up to actually learn this was when I was going carnivore, I swore to myself, I was like, because I did a lot of research on the carnivore space, and I'm like, why isn't there like a how-to weekly kind of thing? And I was like, you know what? I promised to myself if I make it through this, because I had no idea, because I was thinking at that time I'll die of a heart attack or whatever. But I was like, I'm going to make one. I'm going to create one. I promised myself that if I made it through, I'm going to create one. So I observed myself through this whole process. So one of the things I learned from zeroing in on health and those Facebook groups was most of the time what happens with carnivores is they undereat. And I had to figure out, well, why are we undereating by looking at myself? Why am I undereating? And what I found out is, damn, you get full so quick. Even though you're not feeling that stretch receptor really, you just not interested in food and you're looking at meat again, you're like, oh, I really don't want to. So, I started telling myself, look, I actually challenged myself. If meat was really that good for me, I shouldn't be able to overeat it. So with that challenge alone, I was like, I'm forcing myself to eat 3 meals a day and I'm going to comfortably stuff every time. Actually, I didn't learn comfortably stuffed until later. I was uncomfortable every time until my body started just adjusting itself and forcing myself to having smaller meals because it was so uncomfortable to have the bigger meals. So that's where the comfortable stuff came from. See? So At that time, I was not a coffee drinker, but I said the first thing that I'm going to put in my body within the first hour of waking up was carnivore foods. And that's how that point got developed. So pretty much eating 3 meals a day, anything but water is after you eat a carnivore meal, and you're eating 3 meals a day for that to comfortably stuff for that first week, and adding snacks if you need it during that time. And you notice, and I've noticed, for me it took a little longer than those 2 weeks, but I started training other people and started noticing the average was about 2 weeks. So that's why the 2 weeks mark came on.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. What kind of pushback do you get on that particular step? The
Uh,
priming step, excuse me.
yeah, the priming step as far as the pushback on eating so much.
When you're
First,
coaching somebody, yeah, they're
oh
saying like,
gosh,
I don't
gosh,
want to,
gosh,
it's
gosh.
hard for me to eat that much. Like
Yeah,
this, it seems like the step that is the hardest for people to kind of wrap their heads around.
it is, and some of them are loving it because they finally have permission to eat. All their lives they've been told you shouldn't be eating, right? But a lot of them are like, oh, this is bad, this is dangerous. You know, your body just can't handle that much nutrition. And I'm like, if you're because what I noticed is my signaling was way off. I used to have that bottomless pit. I don't know if you know what that feels like, Casey, to like eat, and not be able to stop. That was
Yeah.
me because I'm a binge eater, right? It sucks. So when I just gave myself permission to eat that much to the point of I'm uncomfortable, automatically my body just started shifting and started realizing like it just wouldn't let me get to that point of uncomfortable. So when I started when I kept on with that, I started getting this feedback loop. Like I started being able to hear from my gut, not from my brain, not how much fat I need, how much calories I need, nothing like that. I just started to listen to my gut and hearing how much it needs, and still keep pushing it until it did not allow me to push it to the point where I started fasting, because that was what made me happy.
Yeah.
So hopefully I kind of understood answered that. But you're saying pushback. So I've had pushbacks about saying it's dangerous and all that kind of stuff. And as I witnessed it with other clients, I've noticed that their blood glucose does rise. So obviously their insulin rises. There's a lot of people that get the fluid retention and all that kind of stuff during that time. But this is a normal part of the process. Initially, that 2 weeks is just needed to get the nourishment. The problem is that initially, just like me, I couldn't digest anything properly at all. But as I trained my body by pushing it and giving it, eventually it learned. It it figured it out.
Yeah.
The funny thing is I'm trying to get nourishment in. My body doesn't know how to process these nourishment properly. But little by little, whether it's amino acids or peptides, whatever it is, it starts getting enough to say, hey, I'm going to create enough to stop getting this man miserable and making it better. And as I started getting that, I started noticing my hunger hormones are actually triggering my brains. And I started realizing, oh, I do have a full point. Oh, wow,
Yeah.
this is so nice to have that. First, the food freedom too. I didn't crave any, heck, I didn't want to look at any food at all. I made myself eat.
Mm, yeah. No, I love that.
Yeah. And really, 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 out of all of the form, this is a true carnivore diet. Because when you're going in carnivore, you're like, oh, I can eat 1 meal a day. That's fine. Because I'm full all the time. Well, you're not doing a carnivore diet at that point, you're just fasting. So we need to look at it. Where is it a point where you're doing a true carnivore diet? Now, of course, later on, as I started teaching priming, I noticed that there were weaker people, people who were vegan for long periods of time, or they really have gut damage, and they had to eat little every couple hours. And we call that gentle priming. Every couple hours, they had to eat by the clock, but to satiation. That way, their body can catch up and slowly digest and reassert. Either way, the answer is getting that nourishing part in. That's the answer. And that's the win to the carnivore diet, in my opinion and experience.
Got it. Okay, perfect. That's very well explained. And it has to be done through multiple meals in a day. That what
Yes.
I have noticed for myself is like, for example, we just took a trip to Zion National Park, pretty intense hikes every single day. I know for me, I like to do whatever exercise exertion when I play ice hockey, when I do things like that. I want to be in the fasted state. I want to be, generating
Yes.
ketones
So
and
do I.
use energy that way. And I really like to eat when I'm done so I can kind of rest and digest and chill out a little bit. And so
Yes.
what I noticed is I would fast during the day. I do my coffee and I still do the kind of bulletproof style coffee in the morning. I like the MCT. I like the butter. I like to add salt.
Mhm.
Um, I don't think I need it, but I enjoy it. It helps wake me up. And then, we go off and do these hikes. And I think to myself, okay, my exertion, we just did a 12-mile hike. Like that was a lot of calories I burned. I know my limit of meat is like a pound and a half. It's almost to the dot. But I still think that like, okay, well, with all this exercise, with everything that I've done, surely I'm going to be able to eat more than a pound and a half of meat during this
Yes.
meal. And so I buy the 2 pounds of ground beef, and exactly at this Airbnb, I cook up, the burger patties, and I get to about a pound and a half, and there's nothing to save. The leftovers, and I have to throw it away. And I'm like sitting there kicking myself, like I know I can't eat more than that. Is that something you
That's right.
notice quite a bit where people just have this limit and they can't really push past it? So the only way to get around that is making sure that you're eating multiple meals.
That's right. That's right. And remember that you see, you're a carnivore for a little longer time. Earlier on, it's very important to get as much as you can to train the body to get used to handling carnivore meals. But later on, you hone in, you notice that you said you just cannot even push yourself. That's where I want your hunger signals to be. That's where mine is. It wasn't like that before. I could always make excuses to eat more and more and more. So when you honed in at that point, then that's when you want to be interested in doing a fasting workout, doing pushing that limit. See what I mean? And this is why I like doing the following from priming to fasting, because it's a prerequisite before you get to these other steps. There's a certain phase you have to meet, and the body gets comfortable in that phase, then you start fasting it and getting it comfortable in that phase. So they're all so I like how you're doing it, and I definitely encourage, other than the coffee, because there can be bad things, but if you don't have any effects from it, that's fine. Early on during the 90-day transition period, and this is why I created the priming and fasting, this is what I want people to learn. How is my body going through this? Depending on the week, depending on the level. So this gives people this marker like, oh yeah, level 3, week 3, this is how I felt. And maybe I'm not quite ready to go to the next level. See what I mean? So every stage is to learn yourself. How is it that you'll go through these stages, and whether you're ready to go for the next step, whether you want to add extra exercise or extra things, because we're such all or nothing. We're like, oh, I'm going to do all of this all at once instead of taking steps to do it. And this develops awareness, and that's the idea of these 90 days. So it's not like any big magical secret. It's just more something for you to learn yourself in a in
Yeah.
a in a structured way.
Thinking about that I know you talk a lot about levels and with taking those steps, that makes a lot of sense. And I wanted to talk to you in your experience about fasting and over fasting.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
it is, this is so tough, man. This is a tough one because like fasting ends up feeling so good. Like I remember you talking about
I
how you would
know.
do like 12 hours to fast for blood work, and it was
Yeah.
miserable. Like growing
Yes.
up, I grew up Mormon, and we had to do a fast every month, and it was the worst day of the month. It was absolutely terrible. And
Mhm.
now, like to eat once is great. It's convenient. It's easy. I spend less time worrying about my food. It's awesome, and it feels so good. And so I've seen people get in situations, people I've coached in the past, where they have ended up losing that 20 pounds, and now they are actually like as lean as they like, but they get trapped in the space of like when they fast, they feel amazing. Their ketones are up, their blood sugar's
Yes.
down, they sleep
Yes.
amazing, they're not that hungry, their gut feels amazing, and then they eat again, and it's mostly like
It's terrible.
animal-based meals. They don't sleep as well again, and their stomach doesn't feel as well. But it's like you also, I don't know where that line is of over fasting. So what have you noticed as far as that goes in that scenario, for somebody when they're maybe pushing fasting too much?
I love how you notice that, Casey. So the idea is the body can adapt to certain fasting regimens, right? But you have to work it slowly. And that's why the calendar's created like a stair-step approach. I never say, hey, go 3 meals a day, and at the end of the week, you're going to do a 72. Actually, that's a bad idea. Even though if your intention was to do a 72, a week in, yes, you've nourished, but the problem is you can't go from one craziness to the other. The body just doesn't adjust like that. So what you want to do is throw in certain like little 23 hours, rest a little bit, keep your body safe, keep your body trusted. So as long as it trusts you and goes into that fast, you won't overfast. The big thing is keeping your body in that trusted state, which we might as well call a parasympathetic state, where it's not freaking out. Because there's a point when you overfast, you can't fast anymore. Have you ever been there? Where
I
you
have
just can't
not
force
personally.
yourself?
I have
Then
not
good, because
personally,
then
but
you've
I've
done
seen it
right.
happen. But I've seen it happen
Yeah,
with some of my clients
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah. So that's what you don't want. So the idea is to allow people to know, and this took me a while to realize, and actually, I've overfasted several times. It took me a little bit to realize that, damn, I have until the end of my life to figure this out right. What's my hurry? Why am I over fasting so much? Why can't I just take it little by little and step by step, making sure I have a rest period and keeping my body safe? Now, I'm not talking about religious fast. Religious fast supposedly is supposed to be about pain. It's feeling the pain, hating it, all that. You go into a religious fast, that's a different talk. But in this case, like a day to day, so you can feel the benefits of carnivore and also that extra benefit of fasting, like what you said, the high, that limitless feel that you get sometimes when you're fasting and you're just like hitting your PRs during the fast. I love that. But the only way to achieve that is what I call a nourished fast. So that means you won't crash after you eat either. You still keep a lot of this good feeling. If you do the swing too hard, then you don't. You crash after you eat. And then all of a sudden you start hating eating and you rather fast than eat, but you lose out on that eventually.
That's very well explained. And let me tell you about the pain of a religious fast. When you're doing a religious fast and you're fed by cold cereal and peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, dude, the worst. I hated those days.
It
It's
is.
absolutely terrible. Yeah, okay, that makes a lot of sense. And then maybe classic signs and symptoms of somebody who is pushing the fasting and is becoming a little undernourished. Would you say that like poor energy, cold hands and feet,
Yes.
especially?
Yes.
Any other like key kind of things that people might notice?
Cold hand and feet, not quite enough. So core
Okay,
cold is the big thing that I look for in that.
core cold.
Yeah, core cold where you just like freezing and you can't warm yourself up. So cold hand and feet, that's going to happen even with little fast. That's not that big of a deal. But usually it's a combination. You're craving, it's weird because there'll be times that you're just out of the blue craving something that you never thought you crave. So, that's a little bit of a sign. Headaches, dizziness, bowel movements, diarrhea, like explosive diarrhea right after you eat. Those
Oh,
are classic signs, and these are important to look at. All of those are signs to tell you that, oh, stress. So, that hangry feeling compounded with other things, because, there's a little bit of adjustment. So I don't like saying, oh, you're hangry, then you need to cut out the fasting. It's not quite there yet. Remember, we can take quite a bit of stress before actually giving it up. The problem is that how much becomes too chronic, and then you start losing your hair. Then you start holding on to any type of fats that you want. I did dry fasting one time, alternate day dry fasting. I think I must have done it for like 2 months, and that way outstretched me. And I swear I kept every drop of water from there, and I just
wow.
ballooned like crazy. So it's just a
Oh,
bad idea. I mean, as great and as lean as I could get myself to look, uh, the cost of it was just not worth it. You know what I mean? So I've learned through well, I want to say I've learned through my mistakes, but I still make them. And that's what I try to teach people. It's like, you're welcome to do the same mistakes. That's fine. Walk through it and learn it yourself. But I can tell you from my experience, this is what happened. And I'd like to share with you that you don't have to go through that because you got plenty of time.
yeah. No, that's perfect and a great segue about what I wanted to cover next with you. And this is where the value is of working with somebody who's an amazing coach like yourself, and these group programs that you offer is you've done this so many times with so many different people. You must get a lot of the similar same questions all the time. So to be able to like take people through that and have that community support again just offers so much value for people. And yeah, you and I were talking a little bit offline about kind of a topic we wanted to address today, and it's really the kind of what we mentioned earlier. Like people come to carnivore largely because of weight loss.
Yes.
Everybody has weight to lose. Like you just look around and people can lose weight. They can burn fat. We want to figure out a way how they can do that, how they can maintain muscle mass. But it shouldn't necessarily be the primary thing that people are looking for. And body image is such a huge thing these days. Driving people to do things that could be a little bit controversial with the GLP-1 medications getting so
Yes.
popular, and bariatric surgery is becoming so popular these
Yes.
days. Like it's such a push to get there, and I understand it. Like I get why people are doing that, but it's also like not the most important thing at the end of the day when you're describing all the benefits that you're having. Like weight loss was nice, that's really awesome. To be 80 pounds less on planet earth, that's really great, but you had other reasons too. And so I wanted to hear you kind of address that topic and how you help people understand the carnivore diet. Yes, it can help you lose weight. Yes, we can help you burn fat, but there's other reasons. And yeah, you should expect that.
Yeah. So what I want to say first of all is that with the carnivore diet, if we're looking at it as a weight loss goal, then we're kind of missing the point. See, initially I could have been easily like, oh, I'm fat. That was the reason that I'm going to try to get my insulin level. If I lose weight, I'm going to lose my insulin and all that kind of stuff. But I noticed there's no correlation with how fat I was and when I went carnivore with insulin or any of my limbs feeling better as far as the weight on. I had the same weight on it, but because I was carnivore, I didn't get the pains. See what I mean? So I did not put the relation as weight equals better health. Right now, my doctor told me you lose weight, that's going to be most of your answers, and that's not the case. Before I lost weight, I lost a lot of pain. I got the mental clarity and all of that by just changing my diet. Now, eventually, the weight started losing, but it gave me a clarity that I've never had before. Is that and seeing it through a lot of clients. I wanna gain muscle, lose fat. That's what I hear all the time. Well, okay, I get that. And the issue is, and they're looking to tweak all of these numbers to do all of this. And I'm like, hold up, hold up, hold up. First of all, I just want you to eat the proper food and let's see what it does for you. Second thing, I always let them know to realize, look, we have this one body that's going to take us through all of our lives. And my problem is that I used to hate that body that I had all through my life. I never was happy with how I looked. And believe it or not, when I got as you've seen those pictures, when I got as lean as possible, I still wanted more. I was like, I still could shave off a little more. And I thought, my God, that's a sick mindset. I was like, why am I like this? So by looking at that, I was like, wait a minute, this one body that I'm going to have the rest of my life, I'm going to hate it for the rest of my life. That doesn't make any sense. And then the realization came. It's like, what if I start, and don't get me wrong, this was hard, right? So when I started taking pictures of myself every couple of weeks, that's when the realization really started. I started loving myself for whatever that picture was right there. It's like, oh, this is just me. This is who I am. And I was able to face myself and say, hey, it's okay. Things are okay. I noticed as I did that, my body relaxed a lot. And as it relaxed a lot, I had started noticing digestion got better. The thing is I had very poor digestion before. So whenever digestion got better, I was like interested. I was like, oh wait, there's something there. And not until later on, and probably something recently, I started finding out about the parasympathetic and sympathetic mode, being on your fight and flight, which I apparently was all the time, getting my mind all, meanwhile I'm eating and I'm not digesting properly. And all that does seems to hold on to any of that extra layer of fat that I hated anyways. And as I relax into my body, accepting my body more, it starts sculpting even better. So instead of punishing my body with extra fasting, extra dry fasting, I started just loving my body for what it is. Now, there is a downside to that because I also don't push my body as hard. I do things to enjoy it. I push it, but just kind of flirting pushing, you know what I mean? There's a little difference. It's just enjoyable for me to push it instead of like I must do this to look like this. And can you imagine for somebody like me that has to do public appearance and sometimes you'll see me kind of pudgy because I just prime, for example, because I'm not all about the looks. So people could easily say, "Oh, you're a fat carnivore. All of your fasting and all that work you done is I don't want to do that." And I'm like, well, for me, that's not what it's about. I'm not doing it to impress anybody. I'm doing it because it gave me quality of life. It gave me the second chance in life that I never thought I would have. But it gave me so much more than that. Right now, I feel like I have this, lately, I've been going through this spiritual experience because of carnivore. It's made my mind so clear. It's giving me more of a raison d'être, a reason of being here, and this motivation, this want for life, this happiness for life, and it spreads around me. So I start feeling like I'm manifesting dreams that I never thought was possible.
That is so beautiful. I absolutely love that. Have you ever heard the saying, we waste our skinny days thinking we're fat?
Yes, and I've witnessed it because I caught some clients sending me pictures of them back then, and I was like, "I'll bet you didn't care about your picture back then." She's like, "Yeah, I hated myself back then." I'm like,
I
"Yeah,
hear
but
it
you
all
wish
the
you were
time.
that." Yeah, and you wish you were that person again.
Yep.
It's just
You do now. You didn't
crazy,
then.
right?
You
Right, you
hated it
didn't
then.
then. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
And
No,
and guess what? The inevitability of it is we will grow old. As I see myself, even on a carnivore diet, I'm going to grow older. The thing that I can hope for is not lifespan, how long I'm going to last. Because let me tell you, if I was going to last like that, I would have killed myself because it was a terrible way to live. But this kind of health span that I'm getting, oh my God, I can't wait to see what's next. I'm like 7 years in, I'm still getting we got benefits. What's going to happen 15 years later?
yeah. That's amazing. Dude, I love that. So as a personal trainer, I've done this for almost 2 decades now. I get it all the time, and people have goals, and they are aesthetic goals. And I tell like that's fine. You should want to look better. That's okay. That's great. But like
Absolutely.
I see people take it so far or take concepts into personal training like progressive overload, for example, where like you want to continue to provide more and more and more of a stimulus to muscles to help them to continue to grow. But you can't just keep doing that in a linear fashion forever. Like you're not going to get to 1,000 pounds and then think you're going to get to 1,100 pounds on a leg press, for example. Like you can't just do that. And like I love the idea. Yes, we want to build more muscle. Yes, we want to lose some fat. Can we also be happy maintaining? Like your body does not just want to add tons and tons and tons of muscle all the time. It's not just going to continue growing. The number of people that I see who push themselves too hard, who burn themselves out, who get injured, have the nagging shoulder or knee injury, now they can't work out at all. Now they're going absolutely backwards in their goals. It's like, dude, if you just would have been a little bit more reasonable, been a little bit more patient with everything, you could have done this in a consistent way and maintained where you were. And like you said, like appreciate the process. Be happy for the things that you can
Yes.
do.
Yes.
What things in life can you experience that other people cannot experience? Can you go on a hike? Can you go outside
Yes.
and walk and see nature? And like, there's so much joy around for maintaining a decent amount of health. Like, go appreciate that. I wish people would do that more.
Yes, I mean, in my carnivore journey, beforehand, I wasn't doing anything. I couldn't, I couldn't. And and my carnivore journey allowed me, okay, to do karate, to do jujitsu, to do rock climbing. I can hike. I mean, a lot of the hikers were even surprised that I could do this, knowing that I'm not a hiker. I did like I think a 12 miler for 2 different days, and it was next to nothing for me. It's just how easy it was to carry myself. So at any point in time, I'm functional. That's something to be grateful for. Yes, I'm not going to be like a David Goggins type and do the ultra marathon. Actually, I probably could train for it. Actually, I have the confidence I could do that. I don't want to do that because I don't want to do it with the mindset of I'm punishing myself. I want to do it for the mindset of this is great to be living. I'm doing rock climbing not because not to torture myself because it's freaking fun. You know, it's freaking fun to just get up there and just start climbing, and and I'm doing it with my son, and the connection that I have with my son, which karate and martial arts, that's what I feel like for me is what life's all about.
Mm. I absolutely love that. And you mentioned something off air before we started recording, that it's like it's the gratitude of experiencing that, to feel that, to sink into that, to express it, and to turn that into love towards other people and inspiration. It's just, it's so much bigger than just the way you look or how much weight you can push in a gym or what number of your body fat percentage is. It's just, yeah, I wish more people knew that. And I absolutely love that that's a big passion of yours to share that message.
Yes, yes. I mean, I had to learn the hard way. At first I thought that was the answer too, chasing the numbers, chasing all of this. But you realize that for me, because I was at such a, facing the barrel of a gun kind of thing, it gives you a perspective as you're climbing back up, what life really should be about. So as I hated that period of my time, I'm actually grateful for it because I can actually feel grateful for what carnivore is really doing for me.
Yeah, I love that. We just recently hosted Amy Berger on our show again, and she did a presentation a few months ago at Dave Feldman's conference. And it was one of my favorite presentations that I've seen this year, where her whole point is like, look, low carb is for you. Ketogenic diets, they're for you. They're for your enjoyment and your benefit. This is not to be miserable. This is to be happy and to make your life be better. It's not to measure your ketones and hate it and eat a certain way that sucks and like be miserable all the time. It's the exact opposite thing that we're trying to create. This is for you, and you should just enjoy the benefit, enjoy the journey.
That's right. And I love that she's saying that because that's my message to everyone who loves to track their ketones, their calories, and everything like that. And I'm like, guys, if there was a DSM, proper DSM food issue, that would be it for me right there. Because you're spending how much time a day doing all of this? Some people even track their bowel movements. They weigh themselves every couple hours. There's something needed. And for me, bottom line, everything relies on nourishment because I noticed that I stopped obsessing when I started eating a little bit more fat. It's just like when I used to have OCD. I used to be so bad with the OCD that I would go back to my car door constantly to make sure it's locked, and I had the inability of stopping myself from doing that. I just sometimes I would have the thought, and I'd be shopping, and then I'd have to go back and then go back again to shop, and then go back again to check if it's locked. It's just that kind of obsession. I also had the obsession to the point where I was sleeping with a gun under my pillow, kind of thing. It was just, and these crazy things. It's interesting because the reason I mention this is because it's all related to nourishment. I just wasn't getting enough fat to actually proper signal and calm my mind down. I was just constantly in a state of stress. So I want to even challenge people who are so obsessive. Are they really getting enough nourishment that they need?
Mm, yeah. Raymond, this is amazing. I love this. I know this is going to help a lot of people out there. And I'm like you. Like, yes, there can be value in tracking ketones. There can be value in tracking bowel
There's
movements. Some people have to do that. Most people do not need to do that. And just appreciating that you found this information, you're transforming your life, you're stepping away from serious health issues, and to enjoy the process, be patient with the process, and
yes.
feel gratitude and let that kind of sink into your own spirit is such a wonderful message. I could talk to you for hours and hours. I love my time with you. I love your passion and energy. And I'm just so grateful you took time to come back on our show today. I really hope this isn't our last conversation. We'd love to invite you back anytime. Maybe we could get
Love
Emily
to
on
hear
here
from
as
you.
well. I love the
Yes.
two of you, and she is just the most lovely person on the planet. She's amazing.
Yes.
But
Yes.
anyway, Raymond, a wonderful episode. Thank you so very much. Where can people go to find you and connect with you and your work?
The best way to get with me is check out the SBG meetup. You'll see the SBG on Bella's group. That's the way to get to me. That's my preferred way. If you wanted any coaching from me, which I'm pretty selective about my coaching, but you can go ahead and let me know your issues. But you can find me at Gmail, rnazon@gmail.com. So you're welcome to ask for coaching. I prefer the group coaching because I really am very encouraged by the community. I really am a believer of that we help each other out. What I've noticed that with the medical community and everything else, it feels like so distant. It's separating ourselves. And for me, I think being human together and supporting each other through our goals and feeling like we're not so alone. I feel like that's really the crux of being human, connecting.
Yeah, yeah.
So I encourage everyone that can, let's all connect together as carnivores and really change the facet of this world.
I love that. No, that's beautiful. And this is just an outsider observation, but you and I have coached for many different other companies, and it does seem like Steak and Butter Gang does the community aspect better than any of the others that I've observed. So you guys, I know, have made that a
I appreciate
priority, and,
that.
and that does shine through. So, man, like
Yeah.
I said, this has been an awesome episode. I really appreciate all your passion and energy, and what a wonderful message to share with others. I know this is going to help a lot of people out there. So, Raymond, thank you so very much for taking the time
Thank
to
you,
be on our show
Casey.
today. Just really, really appreciate you. You're the best.
Enjoy you, man. I hope I'll see
Uh,
you soon
Me too.
in
We'll
real
see you soon
person.
for sure.
Take
Absolutely.
care.
Must be person. You too. And this has been another episode of Boundless Body Radio.